The first thing you should know about the bar I worked at is that nobody came there for the drinks. The place was called the Velvet Room, but there was nothing velvet about it. Peeling vinyl stools, sticky countertops, and dim buzzing neon lights. It reeked of desperation and stale beer. The customers? A mix of drifters, cheaters, and people who preferred their vices in the dark. The Velvet Room was a cheap hideaway, a space where you could lose yourself in someone else for a few hours, no strings attached. I wasn't just a bartender. Let's be honest, no one tipped me for pouring watery whiskey into chipped glasses. They came for my laugh, my wink, the way I leaned across the counter just enough to let them dream. Flirting was part of the job, and it paid better than anything on the menu. The night it happened was like any other. The bar pulsed with muffled moans and breathy whispers in the shadowy corners. A man and woman, strangers, judging by the awkward heat between them, were making out at the table nearest to the bathrooms. Another couple wasn't even trying to hide it, his hands disappearing under her skirt as she threw her head back, exposing her neck like some kind of sacrifice. I didn't care. This was normal. But there was a man sitting alone at the far end of the bar. He had been there for hours, nursing the same drink. No one had approached him, and he didn't seem interested in the flesh parade unfolding around him. He didn't fit in. His suit was too clean, his posture too stiff, and those eyes, icy and unblinking, like he was dissecting every person in the room. "You okay there?" I asked, wiping down the counter near him. He didn't answer right away, just turned his head slowly to face me. His lips parted into a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm fine," he said. His voice was soft, almost polite, but it made my skin crawl. "I'm waiting." "Waiting for what?" I pressed, trying to sound casual. He tilted his head, as if the question amused him. "For the right moment." Before I could ask what the hell that meant, the lights flickered. Not unusual for the Velvet Room. The wiring was as ancient as the clientele. But this was different. The lights didn't come back on right away. For a moment, the bar was plunged into total darkness. Then I heard it. A wet, tearing sound, like meat being ripped from the bone. It came from the table near the bathrooms. When the lights buzzed back to life, the man and woman were still there. But something was wrong. His head was tilted at an unnatural angle, his neck twisted so far around it looked like a gruesome magic trick. The woman's face was buried in his throat, her jaw unhinged like a snake's. Blood dripped from her chin. She looked up, and her eyes were wrong. They weren't human anymore. They were black, glossy, and endless. And her teeth. God, her teeth were too many, jagged and glinting like shards of broken glass. I stumbled back, knocking over a bottle of tequila. No one else seemed to notice. The couple in the corner was still lost in their own world, oblivious. The man at the bar, though, he was watching. Not the woman, not the carnage. He was watching me. "What the fuck is happening?" I whispered, more to myself than to him. He smiled again, wider this time. "They're hungry." The woman by the bathroom let out a low growl, a sound that vibrated in my chest. She dropped the man's limp body to the floor and turned toward me, blood smeared across her face like war paint. She moved too fast, crossing the room in a blur. One moment she was by the bathroom, the next she was inches from my face. "Help me," she said, her voice a guttural rasp. Then her jaw snapped open again, and I saw it. Rows upon rows of teeth spiraling down her throat like a black hole. She lunged, and I barely ducked in time. I grabbed the first thing I could reach, a broken bottle of vodka, and slashed at her. The glass caught her cheek, and she screamed, a high-pitched wail that made my ears ring. Black ichor oozed from the wound instead of blood, sizzling as it hit the floor. "Run," the man at the bar said, his voice calm but commanding. "No shit," I snapped, already backing toward the exit. But before I could reach the door, the couple from the corner stood up. They turned to face me, their eyes as black and empty as the woman's. The man grinned, his mouth stretching impossibly wide, revealing the same nightmare teeth. "Oh, come on," I muttered. They moved in unison, eerily synchronized, blocking my path. The woman licked her lips, her tongue too long and too thin. "Stay," she cooed. "Play." I felt a hand on my shoulder and spun around, ready to fight, but it was the man from the bar. Up close, his face was even more unsettling. His features were too perfect, too symmetrical, like he was sculpted rather than born. "This way," he said, pulling me toward the back door. "Who the hell are you?" I demanded, but there was no time for answers. The creatures, whatever they were closing in. Their movements were jerky, almost insect-like, as they crawled over tables and chairs to reach us. We burst through the back door into the alley. The air was cold and sharp, a shocking contrast to the suffocating heat of the bar. "Keep moving," the man ordered. "You're not in charge here," I snapped, but I followed him anyway. The alley stretched on longer than it should have, the shadows growing deeper with every step. My lungs burned, and my legs felt like lead, but I didn't dare stop. I could hear them behind us, their claws scraping against the pavement, their guttural growls growing louder. "What the hell are those things?" I shouted. "Predators," he replied, "and your prey." "Helpful," I said through gritted teeth. As we ran, I felt the necklace I was wearing bounce against my chest. It was a trinket I had picked up the day before at a vintage shop, an ornate piece with a dark gemstone that seemed to shimmer even in low light. For some reason, the weight of it felt heavier now. "Wait," I said, slowing down. This necklace, is it?" The man glanced at me sharply, his expression darkening. "Where did you get that?" "What does it matter?" I asked, clutching it protectively. He grabbed my arm, his grip like iron. "Where?" "A shop," I stammered. "Some dusty little place downtown. The owner said it was special." "Special," he repeated, his tone grim. "You have no idea what you've done." "What I've done," I shot back, panic rising. "What does this have to do with them?" "The necklace is a beacon," he said. "A lure. You've marked yourself. And now, they won't stop until they've fed." "Fed on what?" He didn't answer, and just yanked me forward again. The creatures were closer now, their snarls echoing in the alley. My mind raced as I tried to piece it together. The shopkeeper's words came back to me. "It's one of a kind, meant for someone special." I had thought she was just making a sale, but now I realized she had been warning me. We finally reached the street, and the man pulled me toward a nondescript car parked under a flickering streetlight. He opened the passenger door and practically shoved me inside before sliding into the driver's seat. "Drive," I said, my voice trembling. "Not yet," he replied, staring at the rearview mirror. I followed his gaze and saw them, 3 figures standing at the mouth of the alley. They didn't move, didn't speak. They just stood there, watching, waiting. What are they waiting for? I whispered. The right moment, he said. Then he smiled, and for the first time, I noticed his teeth. They were sharp, too sharp, glinting in the dim light. My blood ran cold. What are you? He turned to me, his eyes glinting with something ancient and predatory. Not your enemy. Not tonight. Before I could respond, he started the car, and we sped off into the night. The figures in the alley didn't follow. They just watched, their black eyes fading into the distance as we drove away. This isn't over, he said, his voice low. You've seen them now. They won't forget you. Neither would I.